Good evening. It's me again, Saki Mubeni. The subject that I've chosen today is spiritual foundations as I understand it. Might be wrong in many ways, but I stand to be corrected. But I'm simply going to give you my own perspective of the spiritual foundations as we need them, for recovery, drug and alcohol recovery. It might be for anything that one has to recover from, it might be any sort of addiction or, anything that one might be suffering a trauma of any sort. So, first I have to, try to kind of explain, what is this spiritual foundations. First, let's talk about honesty. Honesty is a very hard thing, a very hard concept, to even think about. How much am I willing to be truly honest about everything? Am I really honest about myself before I could even speak to my sponsor or start writing anything down? Am I able to transcend exactly what has happened honestly? Am I willing to go through talking about or writing honestly what has happened? Because my honesty might also be clouded by many other things that I might not see. But I have to first understand that am I willing to remove stuff from my heart, remove stuff from my head, put it on my, whatever that I'm writing, inventory, or my step 1 or my step 4, going, there, as where it is, the direction, that one has to take, towards getting well. So first, the foundation of honesty is very important in the work that one has to do for getting well. Before I even go to open-mindedness and willingness, am I really honest about what I need to put out there for me to get well? So honesty as a foundation, like we do in in this 12-step program, where we need a very strong foundation, so that when we put the 5 pillars on this foundation, they will not crumble. So yeah, being honest is being able to put out everything else out there without fear of self-judgment, without fear of the sponsor judging or anyone that might be helping me in this process of getting well, of understanding what really happened. What is it that makes me want to use, drink, hate others, lie, and all of those things. So how honest am I? Am I willing to talk about things that are normally taboo? I speak mostly out of the African context of everything else. There's taboos, there's people thinking that when we talk bluntly and robustly about these things, it's actually wrong. It's kind of shocking. And but for me, I think it is very important to start by really being honest. I sometimes use the word brutally honest, and yeah, it shocks quite a few people when you say brutally honest. It says, though, you have been cruel or something. But in essence, it's simple. I need to tell it how it is. I need to tell exactly how it happened, how it made me feel, how it has affected others. So it is very simple to avoid, through embarrassment and not wanting to come out clean because I'm scared that someone will judge me, or or a sponsor will judge me, for whatever reason that I might be afraid of. This is why it is important first to find a sponsor that I trust with my heart, I trust with my mind, I trust with everything else, because it is my sponsor that will help me navigate my recovery. They are not going to do recovery for me at all, but they are going to help me navigate, think, see how I find my path towards my well-being, psychological and otherwise. So being honest is being able to talk about or to write every little thing. What happened, where, with who, how does it affect me? How does it affect the person, the next person, or everyone else that is involved in that event? So am I afraid to talk my truth? How is my truth going to sound? Am I going to augment the story, make it sound you know too much of what is not? Am I going to make it sound rosy? Am I going to sugarcoat? Am I going to minimize on it, or am I going to maximize on it? So that maybe I can look good. Maybe we have problems with stuff like junkie pride, whereby we want to show that how best, or how horrible or how good we were as addicts. This is why also the preambles will state that it doesn't matter where we come from, how much we used and how little we had, or whatever, or how much we had. It doesn't matter. What is important is it's my well-being. I have to get to a place where I'm honest about what really happened. So that is one of the spiritual principles that is important for me to start the work. Then I come on to the open-mindedness. How open-minded am I? Open-mindedness also speaks to how honest I am. Am I open-minded enough to trust my sponsor? Am I open-minded enough to take suggestions from my sponsor, no matter how tedious sometimes it might be? Because every sponsor's got their own understanding and their own way of doing things, but normally there are books written on that, but every person's got their own personality and how they prefer things to be done. But am I open-minded enough to follow the suggestions, especially of the sponsor, knowing after hearing maybe my life story, understanding exactly what has happened to me, how any decision might affect me. So am I open-minded enough to follow my sponsor's suggestion? Am I open-minded enough to write about it, to spend time to look deep within myself, and then being open-minded, it's a very hard thing, because obviously being in active addiction, one would be stubborn, for an example, a self-will running riot. One didn't want to listen to anyone or listen to any suggestion, therefore one has always been controlling of everything that is happening around my life, for an example. But now this time I have to take someone's suggestion. So am I open-minded enough to ask the questions as well, to receive help, to hear exactly what the other person might think about what I might do or what I need to do? And the last spiritual principle, which is willingness. Am I willing? Do I have the courage? Am I willing to do what the sponsor is suggesting? Am I willing to spend the time to write, to talk about it, to go to the meetings, to follow suggestions? How many other people would even suggest that my amount of desperation for drugs then should also be the same amount of my recovery. for any length I have went for my drugs, for my alcohol, for my behavior, I should have the same amount, of enthusiasm for my recovery. So that is completely important for me, that, I should be really, really willing to, sacrifice everything else because of the life that might come, or that I hope to come through my recovery. The only thing that I had when I came into these rooms was the hope. In fact, even the hope was a bit, you know not clear. There was just a bit of hope that maybe these people can help me. That was very important. The second time I went to a meeting, then I realized that really, the hope has started to grow. I really wanted what these guys have. And obviously the faith started to grow, when I had others saying, I'm 6 months clean, I'm a month clean, I'm 3 years clean, 10 years clean. Which I thought it was never possible, for anyone, because I always thought that, I was on my own, I'm only suffering this thing alone and no one else, will understand. But through this rooms, through the people in the rooms, through the fellowship, I learned that it is actually possible, that, I started to believe a little bit. Okay, now so I'm starting to have faith. And once I started working the program, then I started having the trust that it does work, because it is a day now clean. It's a week now, it's 2 weeks now, it's a month now. So, I started believing in the program. This is when also the trust started to grow, trusting my sponsor, trusting the program, hearing the stories, and still very cloudy then, but there's so many things that one is learning, through the process. I guess, one will learn forever, so the one pillar that was, very important after that foundation is the meeting, where meetings, whether, is held underneath a tree or in a building, or whether do I understand the people or not, preamble states clear that only the desire to stop using, is what is needed for me to be in a meeting. And I come as a newcomer, I am open-minded, I'm willing, to hear, to listen, and people who are sharing their stories and how they have, done it. And it gives me the strength, it gives me the hope, it gives me the faith that this is also possible for me. My first week of recovery was amazing, but it was also very difficult because I'm fighting urges, I'm fighting cravings, I'm fighting so many other things. So I had to be determined, to stay clean that first week. I remember I had to do it, you know hour by hour, 2 hours by 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, up until it was a full day, and I'm in bed. I'm waking up the following morning, and for the first few days, at least now, I'm not running away, from a dealer or from someone that I lied to or stolen from. It's life is becoming a little bit better, with that 1% it's the struggle is getting less, and I'm looking forward to this meeting again, that night. And so when the meeting becomes a point where I know that I'm going to be completely safe, I'm going to hear the stories about the people, and I'm going to get encouragement, I'm going to learn more about this program, and this is where obviously one learns everything about how it works. Then I find a sponsor, and fortunately, I found my sponsor in the very same first meeting I went to. So, yeah, he saw my interest in the program and how I wanted to be clean, and he offered to sponsor me. I didn't have many questions. I simply had to trust him with the process. and then discovered that the step work that needs to be written. Oh, interesting stuff. Step work. And remember, by then one is from, active addiction, from the street, dirty. The mind is not thinking straight. I'm thinking, oh, will I be able to do this? It's been long that I haven't been writing, and will I be able to do this? But obviously, again, my desperation to stay clean also influenced my enthusiasm and my eagerness to actually sort out the inside, my mind, what makes me pick up, apart from fighting the physical part of my disease. There's the mental aspect of it. There's also the spiritual aspect of it. So one is learning as I'm attending meetings, and then I found out that, oh, I still also have to do service, help others. Fortunately, service, I learned that service keeps me clean. There's so many cliches in this program, but they really work because they're like our mantras, it's like our chants, we chant this day, one is too many, 1,000 never enough, but the more I say these things, the more I plant the seed that one is actually too much, and 1,000 shall never be enough. I started to believe that. I started reciting that in my head so many times that even if when I'm triggered or when I see a joint or whatever that I would want to drink or whatever, my mind would register that hey, enemy, my own enemy, me being my own enemy, thinking that maybe I can use for the last time or something like that, and finding God. That is the fifth pillar, a higher power of my understanding. So, all of what has happened from the time of my birth, in fact, my inception, when I was born, I think it was a God, a kind of idea that I don't, necessarily. Well, I'm using the word God as I may or may not understand. I don't want to attribute it to anything that, I would like to impose to anyone, but a God of my own understanding. So, in that, my recovery started, Let's see how the other chapters will follow. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Thank you and thank you again. Please like my page. I don't know how it's going to work. This is I'm totally new in this technology thing, but the more you guys like it, the more maybe it will encourage me to make more videos and express whatever that I have to express here. Thank you again and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Cheers, boy.